start off with quick introductions. I mean, Farouk, you've been here for the last hour, so you don't really need too much introduction. But
Yeah, they're tired of me.
Loxley, let's dig into your background. Who are you?
Yeah, man, I'm the CEO at Dastan, the parent company of Decrypt, Rug Radio, and now Myriad Markets. Farouk, you want to introduce yourself too? Because I know
Hi.
they saw you. But
I'm Farouk, president of
there you go
Dastan,
again.
founder of Rug Radio, and we also happen to own Trew Media, Myriad Markets, DGens, and Lucky Trader.
So basically, throughout the course of this conversation, I want to dig into Dastan in terms of what it's trying to do with Web3 media at large. And then, of course, we have to dig into Myriad, which is the latest product
Our
to
baby.
launch. Yes, the
We
baby.
had a baby together.
And it's very cute. So let's start off with Dastan. So it all really kicked off with the merger between Decrypt and Rug Radio. And then now, as we said, we have Myriad Markets that's entering the fold. What was the grand vision here? Like, what was the bird's eye view ambition that you guys are basically going after? Loxy, why don't we start with you?
Go for it.
Yeah, you know, a few years ago, when Farouk was building Rug Radio and the distribution model there originally, mostly social audio podcasting, he gave me a call and was curious if I wanted to help him build a next generation media company. And the first thing that we talked about and both agreed on was the idea that Rug Radio, because that's all we were at the time, needed to be a tech company that innovated and used emerging technology like blockchain and AI to innovate the media space, not just report on it. And so as we ended up becoming closer and closer to the team at Decrypt, we found an opportunity to combine our entity with their entity because we all agreed on the same thing, that we needed to innovate and to create an opportunity to really change the value distribution cycle within media so that instead of just extracting from consumers with advertising and farming their attention and their eyeballs, that we could realign the way that content creators, content consumers, and ultimately advertisers, sponsors of these content, would all share in the value distribution.
So decentralized media has been a bit of a buzzword. It's been around for the last few years. I think many have attempted it, many have failed. So what is it about Dastan that you think has that recipe for success?
Yeah, I mean, decentralization in general is like one of the biggest buzzwords in crypto. And it's like, what does it mean, right? Like, decentralization is not anarchy. And also communism never worked, to be honest, right? And so we tried. Like, we went the whole RugDAO route. We created a decentralized autonomous organization until that hit a wall. Because you get so big at some point that just, you can't run a big operation with like 10,000 people. That's just impossible. You can give it a shot. You can see governments. That just doesn't work, right? And so for us, decentralization, the way we approach it is giving the power to the people, right? So with Rug Radio, the way we started is I was creator 001, right? So Rug Radio was created after me. So I founded Rug Radio as a creator, and I'm like, how do I empower other people to do exactly what I do, right? And to get to where I'm at with my voice, right? By creating my content, right? And so that's how we approach the decentralized media aspect. Is, for example, Dudu's out there somewhere, I forget. He was hanging out around here, and Puke Rainbow and Maeve, and there are creators in Asia, right? But they run the thing here. Like, they're so popular out in Asia, and they helped us build our own network here. Why and how? Because I empowered them to do so. We said, here's the brand. We're gonna start Rug Radio. We're gonna create like one of the most powerful, media brands in the industry. We're gonna work on empowering the brand, and you guys can just use this brand to your advantage as long as you respect the brand, right? So you gotta keep that in line always, right? Keep proper brand ethos, proper brand etiquette, and have a North Star, and then other people do their thing without like telling them how to do it. Like, my biggest pet peeve as a creator was always people trying to own me or trying to tell me how to do my thing. No, I do my own thing. I know what I'm doing, and I'm good at it. And so by allowing other creators to do so in a decentralized manner, without telling them what to do with their content or what sponsors to take or trying to eat from their cake, is letting them run with their own thing. And so that's how we kind of approach the whole like decentralized thing. Now, from a purist standpoint, it may not go the way Bitcoin did, right? But I truly believe that decentralized media in that sense made sense. And that's how we've always approached it on a Rug Radio level.
So the principle underpinning all of that is that decentralization is a spectrum. It's not the be-all and end-all, nor is it a binary where
Exactly.
you are either decentralized or you're not decentralized.
Exactly.
So it's about being able to provide brands the autonomy they require, the voice they require, and also the product that they actually want to deliver
Yeah.
without this top-down over-regimenting it.
Exactly.
Which is what makes, Web3 media so compelling, because if we were to compare it to conventional media, traditional media, many people lack trust in that domain. In many respects, traditional media is broken. So what is it that new platforms or new collectives like Dastan are trying to fix out of that broken model?
Ultimately, it comes down to incentive alignment, right? And when you look at decentralization and what makes a group of people disagree or someone run amok, right? And people eventually resort to anarchy and, for lack of a better word, violence. Like none of us are out here with with spears in the Web3 trenches, jabbing each other. But in some ways, we are, right? And it's when you can get a group of people together and understand the vision and align incentives so that we have fair distribution mechanisms, then we can live together peacefully, right? We can coexist. And so looking at media from that lens and that perspective, it was how do we take the traditional models that really incentivized the different parties in a very there was a lot of inequity in the way that the value was redistributed. And how do we re-envision that to a point where the people who are contributing to the content, both in terms of consumption and creation, feel like they are valued in the cycle versus just continuing to create and consume and being taken advantage of. And one of the analogies that I give a lot, and I've done in front of crowds, is ask people, how many of you have contributed to the content machine that is social media? And when I ask whether from the perspective of, how many of you have tweeted, how many of you have posted on Instagram, everyone raises their hand. They've all fed the machine, right? Then you ask the second question, how many of you feel like you have been fed by that machine? And all of the hands generally go down, with the exception of a few who may have had a brand sponsorship deal or feel like social media somehow or another, or the media machine enriched their life, but it's not common. And so our primary imperative, our job is to say, how do we fix this core fundamental problem where platforms like Google and Facebook, or Meta now, I guess, right, extract so much of the value from the core contributors? And that's really the driving ethos behind the technologies that we're building.
So then if we were to basically take social media, user-generated content, and then we're also to take conventional, traditional media, and then we're to introduce principles of decentralization, incentive alignment, what we're looking at is quite a bit of fragmentation. So how do we make sure that we are not only aligning incentives, but we're making sure that everyone is covered? Or who are we focusing on when we talk about aligning incentives?
I mean, it's from the brand to the creator to the network participant, right? I think the person who's gotten the least amount of value from media is the reader, and it should start from there. It's supposed to be top down, right? Like, at the end of the day, that's the reason why Zuckerberg's a billionaire and the rest are not. Good for him. He built a great business. I'm a fan. But I don't think it's fair that the basic reader, all we got is brain rot. You know what I mean? Like, the average person does this all day long, and there's actually zero value it goes back to. Now, hey, I like to consume a little bit of content too sometimes. I like my watches. I like watching, videos of cars online when I need to maybe shut the brain off. But at the end of the day, there's absolutely zero freaking value that you're getting from it. And you're actually it's actually pretty unhealthy. It's like it's like eating McDonald's 3 times a day, but you're doing it all day long. Do you guys eat McDonald's every day? No, you don't. But you do it on social media. You consume with your brain, right? It's even worse. And so I think that it's very important to align all the incentives from every single standpoint, right? So creators are the fuel that makes social media great. People can hate on creators all they want, whatever they want, but without creators, you have nothing to consume at all.
You have no
right?
content.
There's nothing,
Yeah.
right? And so whether it be, I don't know, cooking videos or what I do with my morning show, I think we drive a lot of value to the industry by bringing the news every morning to people. What CoinDesk does, shout out to CoinDesk. journalist over at Decrypt. But at the end of the day, again, the network participant gets absolutely nothing. And even in crypto, from a food chain perspective, the last person that becomes exit liquidity is always the freaking participant, right? It starts with the founders, down to the creators that always make sure to eat their cake, and then the participant that always gets wrecked, almost 99.99% of the time. So I think that genuinely, I think we're going to get there in a second with Myriad, is a good way to align these incentives from the bottom back up, where the participant actually gets a piece out of it, gets to put the reputation on chain, gets to participate within network, and gets a piece of that network back to it. Then the creator that is empowered by the participant, and then of course the people that are responsible for it all.
So it's about creating a better system of symbiosis.
Flip it upside down.
Right. So
it's a circle, but the thing's gotta be flipped upside down a little bit.
So taking it from something that's quite traditionally extractive to something that's a bit more reciprocal.
Yeah, it's tough. Look, it's not like we figured it out, right? Lux and I are trying. Nobody's figured it out, or else we'd be trillionaires, right? But I think at some point we'll get there. I think we'll figure it out at some point, but something needs to change because the way this model has been going on forever is just useless. Like, I was a creator my whole life. I'm only 30 years old, but like, I started the social media thing when I was 11 because I was bored in school. And at 14, I started my first blog. And then like 10 years in, I'm like, dude, what am I doing? Like, I'm just feeding a machine or feeding people content, but I'm like kind of like what I was telling you guys, like I'm kind of responsible for it. I'm like, I'm the one, pumping all that content out that people are consuming all day long. I'm getting tens of millions of views. Like, I was doing 1 billion impressions a month across my channels. But even as a creator, I was getting near nothing in terms of money. And I'm like, these guys are billionaires. I'm here trying to make enough money to put food on my table, right? So something's going to change somewhere.
So we're very aware there's a problem. We're not 100% clear on how to fix it, but obviously Dustin is that endeavor into fixing it. So if we were to project, let's say 3 years into the future, what are going to be the things that define success for Dustin?
Yeah, I think people will find within our media properties, they'll find that more often than not, they won't be served ads, but rather served opportunities to participate in the content funnel, right? And then that's the biggest thing, right? Is it's giving people, like you mentioned, a reciprocal environment. Instead of treating the consumer like the product and trying to extract from them, how do we get them to participate in the creation of the news cycle and help us find sources of truth? And then, of course, reward them and incentivize them for doing that.
I mean, it's an entirely different paradigm. So what will it take for those users who are used to this extractive relationship to reposition themselves to be more receptive to this more reciprocal environment?
Yeah, I think that's the smallest of all the barriers that we face. When you give somebody an opportunity to participate in something like a prediction market, right? And with us, the transition of our product went from just media into media with integrated prediction markets and prediction contracts. When you give people the ability to participate, people generally want to share their opinion. And we are seeing right now, just strictly speaking on the numbers, that over 50,000 people as of today are participating daily in registering their opinions through our prediction contracts on Decrypt and in Rug Radio and in some various other channels that we're distributing. There is no incentive for them to do it either right now. There is no real money markets that are live, so people are not betting and gambling. There's no payout. There's no financial incentive. We've just given people the ability to play this game where they can register their opinion, and over 370,000 accounts have signed up on Myriad now, with again about 50,000 daily active users.
So I always like in prediction markets to sort of like monetizing the content, like the comment section of a social media grid. It's giving people the opportunity to not only have their voice heard, but it's in the same way where if you were to comment on an Instagram post and then whoever gets the most liked comment has that little bit of reward, they feel that, I guess, that validation. So that's almost financializing. Yeah, we get that little dopamine hit. But now with Myriad markets, you get a little payout as well. So the first question in terms of really digging into Myriad markets is, why was this the natural extension of a media-born product? Why is a prediction market sort of this next iteration? Why go there?
I mean, to me, it just makes sense. The best example is what recently happened with the elections in the United States, right? Mainstream media had Kamala Harris winning, and it was like landslide. If you read any of the U.S. Newspapers, like, oh my God, Kamala's winning for sure. Kamala's winning for sure. But if you were in crypto, it's like we saw the future, right? Anybody in crypto knew Trump was winning. Why? Because of Polymarket, right? On Polymarket, they had Trump winning by a landslide, I think, what, months before? As a matter of fact, the day of the election, you told me that.
Yep.
It was 9 hours before, actually, Myriad was launched then, just no money markets, had Trump winning, right? And so did Polymarket.
We had a definitive outcome. Nine hours before CNN announced it, definitively, we were at 99.9% definitive that Trump had won.
Yet, if you were watching CNN the day before, you'd think Kamala Harris would have won, right?
Correct.
So regardless of your opinion, my opinion, his opinion on Kamala and Trump, it's beyond that, right? It's bigger than that. Is prediction markets had it. Prediction markets were right. They were actually the biggest winner after Trump of the election was prediction markets, right? And I think it's really important for the people to be able to consume the content in different ways, like we were just talking about, right? There's creators like myself. There's the morning show. Some people like to consume the content like that. They like the podcasting, right? And clearly podcasters played a very important role in this last election. Like, I got to interview Trump, the Nelk Boys, all these guys, it played. I think there was a new age in media. There was a very big cultural paradigm shift that really shocked the world, right? Then you have proper journalists, right? CoinDesk, we own Decrypt. We're very proud of that, very, very proud of that, actually, because, it's investigative journalism. It's good work. They research everything. You can trust them, right? At least you're supposed to be able to trust journalists, right? And they write good content. But where's the missing piece? Again, when we're talking about misaligned incentives, is the people, is you guys, is what we think. And you want to be able to consume that too, right? So you go on my show, you listen to the show. I could be talking a whole bunch of shit, and maybe I'm wrong. But the way you can see I'm wrong is because you can see what the people feel and think in real time through prediction markets, right? You could be reading an article on Decrypt, you're like, wait, this is not right. This is not the truth. But the prediction market will tell you what the truth is. Now, I don't really... Shane Copeland likes to say that prediction markets are the source of truth. I actually disagree. I think prediction markets are a source of truth, right?
It can be.
And it's just a perfect thing for us. I mean, I know you should dive a little deeper into this, Logs, but it's just like, now we have the best of all worlds, right? You have your creators, you have your journalists, and you have the voice of the people.
Really quickly, Marissa and I were actually just talking about this. Prediction markets they aren't necessarily a source of truth even. It's just consumer sentiment aggregation, right?
Yeah.
You can have every person in the world believe something that is wrong in those charts. If they believe this and they are willing to participate in the market, those charts are going to move in the direction that make it look like it's definitive truth. Doesn't mean it's truth. It is just consumer sentiment aggregation, which means that it can inform the way that we report on news, and it can ultimately inform the potential outcome and influence the way that the world moves, right? But yeah, it's very, very important to distinguish that's a difference, that there are two sides of this. There is actual context and nuance and journalism that is required, and then you can almost think of prediction markets like community notes 2.0.
So then why do you think there is such a gap between the truth that traditional media is putting out there, like the journalistic truth that many come to receive, are at the passive end of, versus this popular opinion being this other indicator, this secondary indicator of truth? Because, I mean, to the novice, it's going to become very confusing to navigate the media landscape because you don't know who's telling the truth if people are saying too many different things.
I've said this like 6 times now, unfortunately. It gets super boring when I repeat myself. Incentive mechanisms. Like, think about it. Every single media company.
Incentive mechanism.
Everything's the incentive
all
mechanism.
around the incentive mechanism.
They say follow the money. Every single media company is owned by somebody, which is funded by somebody, and they all have to survive, usually on digital advertising, which comes from somebody. Now, all of those somebodies out there in the world, what is their bias? What is their intent? What are they pressuring? What do they want to be reported? What kind of what kind of impact does true journalism have on their on the externalities, the incentives that they have to live with on a daily basis. Whether it's money that comes from the pharmaceutical industry, or money that comes from political PACs, or money that comes from anywhere.
So in a way, everything is politicized.
There's bias in everything.
Right.
There's bias in
super
everything.
cringe. Like after I did the Trump interview, every single major. Well, first of all, they shut down my Instagram and my YouTube page like 2 days after. We got them back, thankfully. And second of all, every single large media organization reached out to me, all of them, like BBC, like everyone you can name, and they all tried to trick me into saying shit I didn't want to say, and that really pissed me the fuck off. Pardon my French, but like, it pissed me off because these are media outlets that, as a kid, I grew up watching and I dreamed of being on, and now that I'm the one on it, and I'm like, I don't want to be here, and that it shouldn't be like that.
So there is this element of like developing systems that restore trust.
Exactly.
But incentives, again, become quite a tricky thing because incentives do exist within traditional media as well.
Exactly. That's how we have a business to run.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how do we, let's be honest, like, how do we end up here? It's because your sponsors. Yeah. You need the sponsors.
So it leads to a much bigger question, which is prediction markets are a very nascent part of this space. So there are going to be a lot of trial and errors. There's going to be a lot of experimentation. And what it means is, like, how do we develop mechanisms that create safeguards so that this dynamic or this doesn't run away from us? This doesn't become, another meme coin craze where people just want to place bets because they can. And also, to your point, if you reflect popularized opinion, you can cash out at any point. You don't actually have to be correct to make a lot of money in a prediction market.
Correct.
If you cash out on the fact that your opinion is popular. So again, when it comes to this tricky dynamic it has with the pursuit of truth and what's going to help keep people informed, how do you weigh truth against this incentive mechanism?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately we have to remember that there's three sides to every story, right? There's his side and her side and the truth. And ultimately, who's to say what is what? Perspective is really everything, right? And it'll affect the way that people communicate, the way that they receive information, the way that they place their predictions. What we cannot do is we cannot say that we are creating prediction markets as a new class of DeFi product, which it is, as a mechanism that is a definitive source of truth. Anybody who tells you that is telling you a lie. We are collecting consumer sentiment, right? It's consumer sentiment aggregation, like I mentioned before, and that's it. And what that can do is that can help us dispel potential false information, potential false rumors. But what it can also do is it can also sway us into believing something is true when it's not true, right? And so it's important that we protect journalism because there's an extremely important tool there in journalism. And it's important that we approach everything with a level of skepticism, especially when there are financial incentives. However, it never hurts to have more information. And so when we look at today versus 20 years ago, where prediction markets are now a viable mechanism to say, what do millions of people believe? Versus before, where we were stuck to maybe just a few simple outlets as the source of information, then we're able to really determine, okay, do we have a full set of information to make decisions or to inform our opinions?
So in that regard, you could almost consider prediction markets as having a fundamental social good. Like there is a component of this that really drives it, whether it's incentivizing or empowering the reader or the consumer to actually be able to place value on the opinions that they share, as well as encouraging better media literacy, because obviously you're going to place bets on what you feel most and best informed on. But what are the challenges here? Like, what are the things that you need to hedge yourselves against as this scales?
I mean, really, there's opportunity for corruption anywhere, right? We don't want markets to become corrupted. We don't want people to create or to find false incentives and to be able to make monetary gain. the way that we prevent against that is largely network effect. The more people that are using the platform and the more socially integrated that it is, the less likely we are to have those types of attacks. And then really some of the other hurdles really come down to the traditional issues that plague all DeFi products, but particularly prediction markets, which is liquidity, right? There's a world where it becomes extremely challenging to provide a great user experience, just like any other DeFi product, if there is not enough liquidity, both in terms of financial and information liquidity in the market. Then you end up with very uninteresting, very dry, and potentially very volatile environments, right? That just lend themselves to creating just a worsening and worsening consumer experience. So, yeah.
And I guess the other challenge that cannot be ignored is that Web3, whether we like it or not, and despite the scale of this convention, is still a pretty niche space.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the people who are participating in these prediction markets, there is a natural bias, or we haven't hit a natural critical mass to make sure that there is enough diversity of thought within this space for a prediction market to yield the best result time and time again. So
We'll get there.
what's the move to get there?
Well, I'll let Farouk tell you about it, but for us, it was called Abstract.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's why we launched on Abstract blockchain. Shout out to Luca Nets and what they're doing over at Pudgy Penguins. I mean, look, like, one thing we're good at is being everywhere, making noise, getting millions and millions and millions of views, and now converting them to users. For me, like, I don't even see it as a challenge. It's what I've done my whole life. Like, it's fairly easy for me, and I think it's very easy for us at this stage. I know Web3 is very niche, and you're absolutely right, by the way. We're still such a niche, and sadly, we're a niche that loves building just for this niche. I have no interest to build for the crypto user. Like, we are crypto native. We're the most proud crypto bros, whatever you want to call it, ever. I love it. I'll scream it everywhere I go. But we have to learn how to build for users outside of consensus, right? And that's super important. And that's why prediction markets are great. You guys have all used polls before. Remember, when I was a kid, I was scrambling for cash. I was trying to do these things. You know, when you do polls, you get getting $10 or whatever. Like, that's where it started, right? And so there's always going to be an appetite for polls. Like, you go on Instagram, you have polls. You go on any social platform, there's a polling. So I think we just need to crack through that, and that's it. Like, people won't even realize they're using the blockchain. Now, hopefully, people get to see what the blockchain is once they use it. Like, oh, fuck, like, this thing is actually on chain. Hey, let me read into it, right? There's a token. Okay, cool. Let me see what this token does. But, for us, like, I think the goal is just to keep pushing through, mindful partnerships, mindful collaborations. Like, last year, actually, we came to Hong Kong for the first time, not for crypto, but for ComplexCon, right? ComplexCon is coming back to Hong Kong next month. Sick. Like, if you're into fashion, streetwear, blah, 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 like, that's, like, kind of the thing, right? And we were there on the main stage speaking at ComplexCon. So I think the goal is just to be able to crack through that and to be able to put our brands, our companies, our platforms to all, like, outside of the industry as much as we can. And I think Myriad is going to be a good champion for the space. And I think that people should cheer for us to win because, the better we do, the better the industry does. And this is why you guys always see me cheering for everybody in the space, because it's like, we need our winners, right? We need our winners to break through and to become number ones, or else people outside of our space are going to come and prey on us.
So essentially, it's tech abstraction,
Yeah.
making it